project managers. Welcome to today's episode of My Project Hell. I'm Kelly Schockler, and today we're going to do what we always do for 20 minutes. We're going to bring you relevant topics on project management, sharing some practical advice without getting too bogged down in corporate jargon. And we're going to give you some useful solutions that you can use and apply wherever you're at in your project management journey.
That's right. And today is National Noodle Day, and I'm Paul Thompson. In this episode, we've got a special guest project manager that we'll be chatting with. And throughout, we encourage you guys to join in the conversation by using the chat to share your thoughts and ideas with everyone as we go through this episode. Now, I guess, Kelly, why don't we get rid of all the interruptions and everything and get to our guest?
Yep. As usual, we're going to jump right into the episode today and try not to waste 1 second of our 20 minutes. Paul and I want to actually spend this session today giving a little love and shout out to the nonprofit sector, because honestly, seems like nonprofits can always use shout outs and support from everyone around them. And specifically, we thought about devoting this episode to highlighting how project management in the nonprofit environment can sometimes require a different approach, some better understanding than project management when in the corporate sector. So today, Paul and I have a special guest with us to help us explore the ins and outs of project management in the nonprofit sector. And joining us to do just that with her deep nonprofit and project management experience is Washington Initiative for Supported Employment's Technical Assistance and Training Director, Monica Zumach. One thing I know for sure is that Monica has seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of project management in her over 25 years of nonprofit experience, where she spent time providing and implementing employment opportunities for the people in the community of disabled people. She's an experienced consultant and really has a lot of experience in supported employment principles, primarily working with employment agencies, education, government, and businesses. So Monica, thanks for jumping in with us today. It's really good to have you with us.
Thank you, Kelly, and nice to meet you, Paul.
Welcome. How are you doing today?
Awesome. The sun is out and the smoke is low in the Pacific Northwest, so we're good.
That is awesome. So if you ever have a chance, if you watched our show, you know, I'm more of the corporate side of the house. Kelly brings a lot more of nonprofit information forward. So I'm flying blind here and I'm waiting to find out what I've been missing. And so I guess really my first question is, you know, Monica, in your experience, what is it about a nonprofit organization or the environment that makes executing projects different than in the corporate world?
That's a really great question, Paul, and it's that was probably the most challenging one for me to think of, because I've spent my entire career in the nonprofit world. So seeing just briefly with experiences with employers, the project management side and what they're able to implement has been an interest of mine, say 10, 15 years ago, but we've never been exposed to that in our particular industry with social services and nonprofit. So I think what I see that's different between the two elements is in the private sector, project management is a fundamental tool that's already structured into your environment. It's not something that we see in our environment from the get-go. So it's not something that we always had the principles and practices of. And I think there's always the certifications, the trainings, the resources that you all have access to are, I think, more so available than what we're able to have access to over the years. And it depends on the size of the nonprofit. We're very small. We're an organization of 20 to 25 individuals. And so our resources and time are a lot smaller than what you would typically see in the private sector.
Okay. So is it fair to say that project management is more of a luxury in most nonprofits?
I think so. I think it's a tool and a resource that a lot of nonprofits are not familiar with from our particular industry. And when we were introduced to these resources about 10 years ago, it was a wealth of information that we realized that we were missing, and that could really complement our services and our teams within our organizations.
So it seems like WISE, Washington Initiative for Supported Employment, is more, as was open to the idea of bringing some project management practice in. What do you think about it? And I don't know if this is just my experience, so maybe you can speak more to it. It seems like in nonprofit travels that I've had, there's this well, we're nonprofit. We're different from corporate. We're different from private sector. Therefore, we possibly are not going to be able to use these tools effectively. Have you seen that too, or is that just something I
Yeah. And I think just knowing what the tools are number one for nonprofits, and being able to implement them in a timely fashion, because oftentimes in nonprofit, you're chasing the deadline, and you're chasing what is in front of you with the stakeholder or funder. And with multiple projects, sometimes the focus is so much on the statement of work and getting those outcomes, that you miss looking at ways that you can enhance your projects, and in ways that you can be better time managers, ways that you can be looking at your budget differently. So those are all items that definitely were visionaries of just eye-opening things that we really noticed when we received our mentoring from the PMI group. I'm saying 10 years because with the COVID, everything feels like it's 5 years. So I have to add 5 more years onto that. So it was quite a while back. But just in my time at WISE, which is around 20 years, we were not introduced to these concepts until about halfway into my career.
So when you are looking at nonprofits in general and WISE pre-project management embedded in your organization, what did you see holding nonprofit organizations back from being successful in project execution?
I think the first thing was staff buy-in. It was, oh, here's another thing you're trying to sell us to do. Here's more ideas. Here's more templates. Here's more tools. How is this going to make my job easier? So it really was about getting our own education on project management, just what I would say a 101. Because when you look at the private sector, what you all do, or my vision of that is it's very robust. There's huge volumes of books that you have to read. There's conferences, certification trainings you have to take. And that's from a nonprofit standpoint, it's daunting. It's where are we going to get time to do that? How do we invest in this? How do we get people to buy into this to really help make us more sufficient? And so I think that was the number one thing. And then just making time to truly look at our infrastructure and what was working, what's not working anymore, and how can we customize some of the tools that were introduced to us and really make them user-friendly for our own environment. And the language, very daunting. It's almost like you're signing up to take another foreign language class. So I met Kelly at that time. She was our mentor through the PMI project, and she was really wonderful in helping us to understand what the language meant in our terms. So I think that was really important, to take the information, be able to customize and implement tools, and then have our team practice and use them and apply them to projects and teams that we had currently at that time.
Okay. I'm a big tool guy. I really love them. But for me, a tool is that definition is wide open, right? It can be Microsoft project, or it can just be a good spreadsheet that I built 3 years ago that I just keep repurposing over and over to do a budget. You talk a lot about how you were introduced to it. Is there any one tool or any one thing that has really made a positive impact on your nonprofit when it comes to project management tools?
Well, you might find it hard to believe that it's hard to identify one tool
Okay, that's good.
So I'll
Okay,
just
how about a
throw out,
couple?
I'll throw out a few, and I'll even use the language. The project plan is essential for us. We need to, we didn't have project plans, and in our infrastructure, we were not utilizing the concept of putting people in teams. A lot of people were doing things individually. So that really helped create our infrastructure of how teams operate and work. From the project plan, I love the WBS, the work breakdown structure, the whole structure of how things get done. And then we were introduced to the schedule, which I kind of customized and put together. So I create workbooks that have the project plan, the WBS, the schedule. And we also enjoy, and we do still use to this day with every project, lessons learned, some sort of debrief document that really takes the team through what we learned, what we want to incorporate next go around if we continue the project. And lastly, getting agreement from the team on what communication system we're going to use. So we don't always use the communication plan, but we make that part of an agreement in our project plan. So those would be like my top 5.
And you say you don't have the language that I didn't even recognize half of the abbreviations you use. You got this.
I know, we say up front that we're not going to use jargon in this program, but it's not really jargon. It's the terminology that's used, right, to communicate about how project management is executed. So I love that. And have you been able to become sort of an evangelist in the nonprofit world outside of your organization for project management? And
yeah, I think, when we were getting our mentoring, and which I think is one of the key elements to think about with nonprofits, is to find someone that can introduce that information to you and mentor you. And that's what I tried to do in our work. So whenever we would be able to have the opportunity to do trainings, which is the basis of our business is training and technical assistance. And I would try to implement some of those tools and ideas when I was working with program managers and project managers, people who just supervise and manage individuals. There were a variety of other tools I didn't mention that I felt were really instrumental with just doing one-on-one activities with your teams. So any little idea that I could float by that wasn't too time intensive, I would try to share that with other nonprofit organizations that are in our community.
were you able to get a little buy-in there, or it
I
had to
think
be like PM light, right?
yeah, PM light. I think the hardest sell is the project plans because they are a little daunting with how long they are, but we've been able to shorten them. And now the next phase of that we've been able to do is introduce some levels of those into Basecamp. We use Basecamp as a platform tool for communication with a lot of our partners and stakeholders. So I think by just weaving some of those tools in where they don't even know they're using project management tools, we're subtly introducing those concepts to them.
Nice.
Exactly. I love it. They don't even know they're using
They don't even know it.
It's just good business practice, right?
Yeah.
So kind of moving away from the idea of tools and approaches and thinking more about project managers and the competencies and skill sets. And you've been in the nonprofit sector for quite a while, and you have project managers working on your teams. What are some of the traits, characteristics, competencies you like them to bring to the table that supports the success of the project, but also their own success in the nonprofit environment?
Yeah, that's also another really good question. And this is something that I just learned along the way and trying to also challenge myself to stay on top of things. Continue to learn the different concepts, expose yourself to people that are doing the work or people that might be in different communities that are project managers. I think the biggest thing, one of the takeaways that I learned is to always listen to your team, because you may come in with certain ideas of being a project manager or a certain system that you've always used, but it's also important to listen to the team and look for new ways of getting things done or using the same tools, but in a different way. That's how we shifted some things into Basecamp. It was one of my team members who wasn't a fan of all the documents and templates. but instrumented some things on Basecamp that were just the same process. It just looked different.
Nice, nice. Well, let's shift that a little bit to, you know, I heard some good advice on if you have if you're aspiring to be a project manager in and go into the nonprofit. But from your perspective, what are you looking for in a project manager that you might be using, or at least from a nonprofit perspective, if your group is a little small for bringing in project managers? You probably have, you know, big campaigns or something that you wouldn't mind bringing somebody to manage.
Yeah, we do have we have our leads that we not necessarily always call them project managers, but they're called leads. But I think one thing that first came to me with this question was we don't have enough project managers in our industry. And I think a lot of project managers are drawn to the private sector, and our organizations and our businesses would benefit immensely from having project managers consider us as an industry to join and to share their talents and skills. And I think as a project manager in this particular industry with social services and working with the disability population, it's really about listening to your stakeholder, really being clear on what the statement of work and outcomes are, identifying that communication style and participation that everyone needs and contributes on the team. I think that's really critical. And those are things that we look for, people that are organized, and organization comes in different ways, but also that has follow through. Follow through is important, and getting people to the end and helping them identify what their gifts are, because as a PM, I can't do it all. I don't have all the skills and assets. So I have to really look for that team that's going to build that. And that's what I think a good project manager should be.
So it sounds like flexibility is really key for someone entering into this area.
Yes, and I think anything that project managers have from the private sector are an asset for us just to learn and develop. And just like with our language is cumbersome, our acronyms, things that we use, people don't understand, but the concepts and resources and tools that you all use on a day-to-day basis really are things that make us more professional, and we're organized. We are able to obtain more resources and partners in the community, and it just helps make our job a little easier.
So Monica, would you also say that nonprofit in general isn't as hung up on credentials like PMP, and you know, you've got to have all these skills and competencies right out of the gate, that it's more, we see your potential, bring what you have to the table, and we'll develop as we go along.
Exactly. Yeah, we are not so hung up with the letters behind your name. It's about the experience. It's about what you've done in the world and how you can apply that to our work and our mission, and just making our community a better place. So I don't even think that. Yeah, I don't even think it's that. I mean, I realize that is very important in your world, and in the private sector, people look for that, for credentials. We're more about your experience.
So take note, those of you who are aspiring PMs. So let's kind of wind us down here on the interview. What do you see are some of the keys to getting more nonprofits to adopt project management tools and approaches to execute? Really, it's not just on the work, it's on their mission. What do you see are key to that?
I think we need more exposure to what PMs are doing. And I think in whatever's developed, or the next rendition of what you all are working on, remembering to keep it simple and simple language, making things efficient and customizable so that people can take the tools and apply depending on what industry they're in. Creating cohorts and peer groups, exactly what you're doing here, simple podcasts that are just 20 minutes of a person's day, where they're not thinking about having to read a manual and take a test to be qualified. You know, things like that really welcome us into your world and give us tools and give us connections and mentors. I think mentors are huge. And, you know, Kelly's been that for me for many years, and the whole COVID realm. And I hate saying that over and over, but we've kind of drifted apart over the last few years. But it reminds me how instrumental she was just in my professional life and personal development. And I think that is really key if you can think about yourself, not just coming in as a project manager, but you're coming in as a mentor.
Thank you, Monica. That was kind
Thank you.
words. So a lot of insightful information that you just passed along about project management in the nonprofit environment. Thank you you really just paid it forward here with our project management audience and helping folks really understand there's some nuances between project management in the nonprofit world versus the private sector. So thank you for giving us your time and your insights today, Monica. We appreciate it.
You are so welcome. Have a wonderful day, Kelly and Paul, and the rest of you in the audience, wherever you're from.
Thanks, Monica. All right. Looks like it's time to wrap up this episode of My Project Hell. I hope everyone enjoyed hearing from Monica. I know Kelly and I really appreciated her insights. You can catch the replays of My Project Hell on our YouTube channel, and you can always hit us up, Kelly and I, up for some free 30-minute consultation if you'd like to hear any specific topic or dig a little deeper into what you're having trouble with. Just go to our My Project Hell website and you can schedule some time from there.
And then join us next time, where you never know exactly what Paul and I are going to share with you. We've got a few ideas rolling around in our heads and need to decide on which one we're going to do in the next couple of weeks. So we want to thank you for listening and taking time out of your day to be with us. Take care, everyone.
Great show.